Hey guys, so right out of the gate, the first thing to talk about is we get new animated segments in the opening, and the one I want to point out specifically is the one where we see all of Kaido's top officers gather together, and one of them is so large that she has to stand behind the rest of them. But the thing is, she pretty much isn't a giant, but something more along the lines of your larger than average eight-legged specimen. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say on that. Now, there's pretty much another. Now, aside from that little segment, there's another character who's introduced in the new opening animation that kind of gives that. Well, it kind of gives away the ghost a little early in terms of this character's identity. So anime onlys are kind of spoiled on that one. Like it's one of those things where the pretty much where the pretty much moment this character appears in the anime, you're pretty much going to know who she you're pretty much going to know this character is, but also that but it's gonna be one of those things where you're pretty much going to get you're pretty much gonna understand immediately that it wasn't that what some characters are saying and who she actually is are completely different. Like there's pretty much there's kind of less of a mystery of this character's identity now because of this opening. Um, in fact, there's two characters who's there's a character here who also kind of who is going to make a reappearance in this arc, and his reappearance in the arc was also kind of spoiled by this ending. But obviously this character is a lot more obvious. It's Marco. Like Marco is in the opening, and yes, he is going to make a reappearance. So there's that too. Yeah. With that said, we basically get one of the bigger but definitely more obvious reveals in this episode, which is that Denjiro is actually Kyoshiro. And I could be wrong, but I think this reveal got switched around in terms of order of events in the anime, because if I remember correctly from reading the manga, we didn't get this reveal until before or after he reveals himself to the others in the present time. But in like, and I'm talking not even just a couple pages, like I'm talking like moments before he reveals himself. But in a lot of ways, I think it does work better here. I think just to show it here and just kind of like even if the surprise gets a little is a little ruined, I suppose. I think it just serves better to do it here because it just kind of it really just explores just the length in the Prince lengths in which Prince Denjiro was willing to go in order to ensure that everything that everything he was planning, everything he was doing for the sake of the Kozuki was in place. And and on top of that, though, we also learned the reason for his drastic change in appearance, specifically why his eyes got warped in the way they did, which is from nothing more but his pure hatred for Orochi and Kaido. Like this man has been holding on to his rage, bottling it up inside for 20 long years. He's been biting his tongue, holding. He's been biting his tongue, holding himself back from doing anything to Orochi, because he pretty much, even though he wanted to do something, he knew the time wasn't right. Even if it meant waiting for 20 long years until the time was perfect, he pretty much knew. And even if it meant even when he had pretty much taken over, he'd taken over the Yakuza in Hyogoro's place, even if it meant doing all that, and meaning he would get approached by Orochi and having to work for him. He did it anyway because if it meant biding his time and holding his tongue in anger, it was all for his loyalty to the Kozuki clan. His loyalty to the Kozuki clan almost demanded he do this. But because on top of knowing what the because to do this, because on top of knowing what the influence he had gathered over the Yakuza would mean in the long run for the rebel, because he knew what the influence and power he had gathered for being the Prince leader of the Yakuza would mean in the long run. Like he is like the most key player in all of this, as he's the one who pretty much can pretty much command an entire legion of criminals and just soldiers who are willing to fight back against Orochi now, who don't really have an allegiance and are willing to fight back against Orochi. So yeah, it's just one of those very interesting things about Denjiro, where it's one of those very interesting things about Denjiro where it's not an understatement to say that Denjiro was wearing the perfect mask, and the role he's been playing this entire time allowed him complete anonymity from ever being suspected, which also gave Piori the perfect cover as well. Denjiro this entire time has been wearing the perfect mask in by which to do everything that was necessary in order to ensure Wano's future. Like he's the mask. Even though Kinemon, I don't want to downplay Kinemon and the others' efforts at all. What Denjiro has done for 20 long years has laid the groundwork for everything to happen. It really is incredible, frankly. On top of that, though, the episode just really revealed just how much of the events you've been seeing up this time was pretty much planned from the very beginning. Like it says a lot, not only how committed Denjiro was to his vengeance, but also how from a young age he already had understood the lengths he was willing to go in order to ensure that all the pieces were in place for the day when he could finally strike down Orochi and Kaido. Of course, on the flip side to that, we actually learn the identity of Orochi's spy in this episode, because while it isn't explicitly said who it is, the bird who delivers the message is actually a dead giveaway, because looking at it up close, it isn't exactly natural. In fact, it looks hand-drawn. Do it that way you will, internet. But yeah, I'm not gonna say anything more until the actual reveal of who it is, because once we see the actual reveal, that's where I want to go over as many of the clues and hints that were staring me right in the face revisiting this with the anime that I missed when reading the manga, and really just how much of a dumbass I was for not noticing the little things like I do. Trust me, I do that a lot. In fact, if I did have a gripe with this episode, is that they spent the last couple minutes of the episode just kind of recapping events we've already seen, but I think that was a sacrifice that pretty much Toei needed to make for the sake of next week. Like next week is pretty much where they want to go. They just want to go full force into pretty much reveal after reveal after reveal. Again, one of those reveals we pretty much already know now, but the other, yeah. But yeah, the other the reveal in itself is gonna be huge, I think. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I've got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Analyst, Crunchyroll, and be sure to hit the bell for notifications, and just pretty much pass the video around. Share it, guys. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, people.